Puddle Lane, a dragon in the mountains. The Blue Mountains, a dragon in the mountains. The clock in the magician's room struck 12. The magician put down his book. I wonder what happened to the boy who used to strike the hours, he said to himself. There was a girl, too. They both went to the magical country of Zorn. I wonder what happened to them. The magician took a silver bowl of magic water from a shelf and looked down into it. The water changed to greeny blue, and then it became as clear as glass. It was like a window looking into the country of Zorn. The magician saw a boy and girl on the grass by a blue lake. I remember their names now, he said to himself. Irun and Sandella. I'm glad they are safe in the country of Zorn. The water in the water in the bowl changed to blue. When it cleared again, the magician saw a new picture. A fire dragon was making its way up a rocky path in the mountains. As the magician watched, a flame of fire shot out of his mouth. A bush burst into flames. The magician pushed back his chair. The city of Zorn is in danger, he cried. If that fire dragon reaches the city, no one will be safe. He thought for a moment. Then he went to a cupboard. He took out a little red bag and a jar of silver seeds. He poured a handful of seeds into the bag. Then he went to the window and gave a long, low call. A great white swan came flying in through the window. She landed on the magician's chair. What do you want, magicians? Asked the swan. I want you to fly to the country of Zorn, said the magician. A fire dragon is making its way through the mountains towards the city. A boy and a girl live there. They are called Irun and Sandella. Give this bag of silver seeds to them. Tell them that they must plant the seeds between the cliffs across the mountain path. The seeds will grow in the moonlight. They will grow into trees in one night. No fire dragon can pass a silver tree. If he touches it, he will turn into stone. But only Irunus or Sandella must touch the silver seeds of the silver trees. If anyone else in the city of Zorn touches them, they will turn into stone too. The magician hung the red bag around the swan's neck. Fly, swan, fly, he cried. The swan opened her wings and flew out of the window, over the trees and across the hills, towards the country of Zorn. Irun and Sandella were by the lake with Alana when the swan flew down and landed on the water in front of them. Are you Sandella? Are you Irun? Cried the swan. Yes, they both answered. I have a message of you from the magician, cried the swan. And she told them what the magician had said. A fire dragon, cried Alana. I must warn the people of Zorn. There is not much time, said the swan. I saw the fire dragon on the path as I flew over the mountains. We must go at once, said Sandella. If the fire dragon is coming, there is no time to be lost. Aren't you afraid? Asked Alana. Yes, said Sandella, but we must go. I'm afraid too, said Irun. But no one else in Zorn can touch the seeds of the silver tree. We must go. Sandella lifted the bag of silver seeds from the swan's neck. Where is the path? She asked. The path runs through that wood, said Eleanor, pointing to some trees. It runs right up the mountain to the cliffs. You can't miss the way. It's the only path. I will fly on ahead of you, said the swan. I will meet you at the cliffs on the mountain. She spread her wings and flew over the wood and on up into the mountains. Alana had a bag of food with her, which they had been going to eat by the lake. She gave it to Irun, and the two children set out at once towards the wood, while Alana ran back to the city of Zorn to warn the people that a fire dragon was in the mountains. As soon as Irun and Sandella came to the trees, they saw the path and ran along it. When they came to the end of the wood, they saw that the path led on up the mountainside. It was steep and rocky, but there was only one path, and they scrambled up it as fast as they could. Higher and higher they went until at last they saw the valley of Zorn spread out like a map below them. The sun was beginning to set behind the mountain tops, and the rocks and cliffs above them changed from grey to red. The sun had gone and the light was fading from the sky when at last Irun and Sandella came to the pass through the mountains. There were high cliffs on each side and a patch of grass between them. A little stream fell over the rocks in a white waterfall. The swan was standing on a rock by the stream. Plant the seeds here in a line between the cliffs, she called. Plant them before the moon rises so that they can grow tonight in the moonlight. Irun and Sandella each picked up a sharp stone. Sandella opened the little red bag and set it on the ground. They each took a handful of silver seeds from the bag. Sandella went to the foot of the cliff on the left, and Irun went to the cliff on the right. They began to plant the seeds in a long line across the path. The ground was very hard. Sandella was so tired that her hands shook a little as she made the holes with the sharp stone. Irun was longing to rest too, but he knew that they mustn't stop now. There wasn't much time. Drop a silver seed in each hole, cried the swan. Don't cover the seeds. Let the moon shine on them. They will grow in the moonlight. Irun and Sandella moved slowly across the ground between the cliffs, planting the silver seeds. Sometimes they stumbled and fell, but they got up again and went on. Irun had just planted the last seed when there was a cry from the path. They looked across and saw a strange little animal standing there. It was something like a squirrel and something like a cat, and it was a blue-green in color. What's that? Cried Irun. It is one of the Quorns who live in the rocks, said the swan. What is it, Quorn? Tell us, called Sandella. We come from the city of Zorn. We are planting the silver trees. You're too late, cried the Quorn. The fire dragon is coming. The fire dragon is coming up the path from the dark valley. At that moment, the moon rose over the mountains, and fingers of moonlight touched the holes where the seeds were planted. There was a sudden flame by the rocks on the far side of the pass, and they saw a fire dragon crawl over the rocks, breathing out flames as he pulled himself along. We must stop him, cried Irun. We must stop him until the seeds have time to grow. This way, cried the Quorn. Quickly, come this way and throw rocks down on his head. The little Quorn ran to the cliff and began to climb up it. Irun and Sandella followed him, but the cliff was steep and their hands were shaking. Somehow they managed to pull themselves up onto a great rock which jutted out over the path. There was a pile of loose rocks there which had fallen down from the cliff. Quick, cried the Quorn, quick, quick! The fire dragon was almost below them. Irun and Sandella picked up the rocks and hurled them down on the fire dragon's head. The fire dragon looked up and saw them. A long flame shot up towards them. The fire dragon tried to climb the cliff, but the cliff was too steep. They were just out of reach. Help me with this, cried Irun, pushing a big rock, which lay on the edge just above the fire dragon. Sandella flung herself at the rock, and they pushed as hard as they could. The rock crashed down on the fire dragon's head, knocking the dragon back to the foot of the cliff. For a moment it lay quite still on the ground. Quick, cried the Quorn, quick, climb back to the path. The silver trees are growing. Sandella looked across to the grass. A row of little silver trees stood across from one cliff to the other. They were only as tall as Sandella, but as she looked, she could see that they were getting taller. Their leaves shone and sparkled and danced in the moonlight. They were the loveliest trees Sandella had ever seen. Quick, cried the Quorn, quick! Sandella and Irun scrambled up down the cliff after the Quorn as the fire dragon shook his head and began to move again. By the time the fire dragon was back on the path, Irun and Sandella were safe on the far side of the trees. They saw the fire dragon lift itself up and gaze at the line of silver trees. It gave a last roar of rage, turned round, and started back the way it had come. I shall leave you now, cried the swan, flying over their heads. You are safe now behind the silver trees. I must fly back to the magician. Thank him for us, cried Irun. I will, called the swan. She flew up high into the air. Irun and Sandella watched until she was out of sight. Then they looked for the Quorn, but the Quorn had gone. I'm too tired to go back to the city tonight, said Sandella. So am I, said Arun, but it's cold up here on the mountain. We must try to go down. They heard a cry from below them. They looked and saw the people of Zorn coming up the path towards them. Alana was calling to them and waving a lantern. We should be safe now, said Arun, and together they walked slowly towards Alana and the people of Zorn.